Good afternoon, everyone. Let's talk Earth changes. Porto Triano, 1600s lithograph, whiting out that statue. Greeting the ships was over 100 foot tall. How tall is the building behind it? History disappeared. Massive seawalls still visible. 1700s lithograph. Today, next to an airport, inland is where the port is. Parts of it. Are we looking at Project Blue Beam? Can we believe our eyes? How about Project Blue history? And how many Earth changes will we see with the Tree of Life alignment October 2024? And as I was looking for some mega lakes in Africa, this map would have had to have been at least 3,000 to 3,500 years old to see that amount of lakes and river systems right around the Ricat structure, Eye of Africa. David Stig Hansen throwing me some messages about the maps here, which got me on to looking at lithographs. And I ended up finding this one from the 1600s. And what we're looking at here is a river system that bends and merges into what was the greatest and largest of ports that rivaled anything in Greece, Porto Triano. And it wasn't that the hexagonal port, but the buildings, the massive palace around this, the towers, the walls. And as you exited that, two different circular basins guarded by what was a Herculean statue at least 120 feet tall, holding the earth in his hand. You can see that to the right. So my question is, if that statue is 120 feet tall, then how tall is the building next to the statue guarding the port entrance? How many hundreds of feet tall is that? I thought we didn't have building construction to be able to go. Oh wait, the Tower of Babel. I forgot. Are we missing chapters of history? Because this one in the 1700s, notice how much had disappeared from that time. The statue still remains the same size at the break walls coming in, but the building is substantially smaller. And also one of the entrance circular ports has also disappeared. The buildings as well, the grandiose, paralleling structures, gone. All within 100 years now, according to the quote-unquote history. And another stylized version looks very similar, but they do actually have the bend in there. And there was some waterworks projects, obviously, that had gone on to allow access to that river outside the port itself. And whiting this out, this is the same thing that had happened with many a World's Fair, where they say they built these buildings and then just tore them down. But what you're looking at with the Greek, the Roman architecture there would be as large as any of the largest governmental buildings that we see across our nation that still exist today. And those walls, and those seawalls were 30 to 50 feet tall with the guard towers on them. So this is a massive, I mean massive building construction project. And you notice if the bottom right there, one of the buildings is actually submerged. So you have to wonder if they were being inundated at that point with sea level rise. And the building technology is definitely disconnected and removed from what we know. Gold has soared past $2,000 an ounce. All-time record high prices. Wars in Israel and Ukraine. Rate cuts on the table, fueling gold's meteoric rise. Call the proud Americans the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Adapt 2030 channel. You're going to get some great in-class service. Also, Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. And looking at Google Earth today, what we do see is the hexagonal port. It's actually a tourist area, quote unquote, archaeological area that you can still visit. So what's most notable is if that's at the end of the port, And you can see the channelway coming into the hexagon. Where's the rest of it? And how much earth change has occurred to cover that port completely with earth? We're talking about a mile or more from the original coastline. So that means right away something does not add up with timelines that we know in terms of earth changes. It's more than a mile to that, what you see, end hexagon port there. So how much new land can form? You know, we have this gradualism thing that's been fed to us. How much time would it take to fill in that much coastline, a mile, mile and a half to the end of what would have been the waterway? That's the question that needs to be asked. And also another thing, the airport's right next to it. Did they do earthworks? Did they remove what would have been out-of-place objects in history that were unexplainable with architecture? Because you find with some of the largest areas where there were star forts or whatever, you'll see golf courses right next to it, which used to be star fort or incredibly large building areas. Or you'll start to see something like airports, storage warehouses, something on this level that can be used as an explanation to do huge earthwork projects without blinking an eye. I know through history that's what they usually did, was they took the remnants of something, disassembled it, and then used it to build something new, like bricks, brick walls, cornerstones, foundation stones. But we are talking something so massive here. If you think of some of those buildings in the Capitol in the U.S., there were dozens and dozens and dozens of those. So how much can you really deconstruct of that is now completely gone? How much stone is that to move? Oh wait, unless you're using it for an airport, then it could all be deconstructed and just removed around and it becomes part of the airport. It could be anything. The base of the runway, they need crushed rock. This is definitely something very unusual that I'm looking at here, and the timelines don't sync. And with that much earth change, something else huge had happened, if we're supposed to believe the timelines. So that brings me to the thing. 2024, this tree of life alignment, are we going to see gargantuan, almost instantaneous earth changes? So visiting a few other websites, as they go back in what was considered the classical descriptions of it, they've done reconstructions. So Porto Triano, easy to see where the exit channels would have been, has some sort of rudimentary break wall, which looks nothing remotely close to the grandiose architecture and massive building project. And we see something similar, you know, a little more stylized here. They call it the first harbor. Okay, and then if we jump into Google Earth, you can actually see where the channel was coming out. It's still sort of a swamp area, but it's been filled in. And they have to ask, was it filled in on purpose, or what was the earth change that filled that in? Now the water's always going to go to that low point. You could expect that. And also the river that's to the south is in the exact same place. Well, actually it's moved. It looks more like it followed that road originally, but somehow that road now covering was the river, perhaps rediverted for farming projects, not sure. But this is what it looks like today. About a mile and a half to that hexagonal port. And you can see where the bend is in the river there, which was the second round area port, and then obviously the largest entrance, which still has a break wall and waterway entrance today, canal system going inland, visible for us. But this is a massive, I mean massive feat of architecture for the time. So if we look at a little aerial again, you get a good glimpse. Now there's the bend, and that's what you want to look at, that second bend. I had to orient this a little bit differently coming out of versus coming in from the sea. So we want to take a look out it. You'll see the second bend right there. That is the river. Now how large would the original port need to be? Well, you can actually see it in the seaside. You see that curvature. If you go out offshore, you'll start to see that oval shape. That's the size of it. Compared to a modern airport, and that you're looking at something very, very significant. So walk back with me here. Go back to the hexagonal area, and you can see the exit channel, which would have led to the second circular arch safe harbor out into the main safe harbor that would have then exited out into the open sea. Put that in scale. You're looking at the airport next to you, and like, what kind of massive machinery does it take to build an airport? But what was disappeared out of here? You're telling me there's no buildings left? Not even one left over out of all this massive construction. Where did it all go? That's more the question. The remnants are in the sea that you can clearly visualize, that outer where the statue is greeting ships coming in. You know, what is the height of the masts of ships of that time? Gives you a good gauge on how tall the buildings would be. And the reason I'm trying to put this together is we're coming into another very significant time of electromagnetic disruption from the sun onto our planet as we step into this next grand solar minimum. If you go back to 1640 to about 1700, that was the Maunder minimum. So many things changed in terms of economy, government, population migration, and full civilization collapse. And then the restructuring as history tells us. But if we're coming into another one of these, can you explain the earthworks projects? Can you explain the coastline shifting 1.5 miles of dry dirt? Tree of Life. Alignment. This has been at the forefront of religion for thousands of years. It's a very significant geometrical alignment of our planets. Will it have electromagnetic changes, disruptions in our tides? If the moon can affect our tides, what will happen with four gas giants interlooping with their magnetic fields as we swing through the center of this? Would that explain coastlines being added to 1 mile plus? What happens if the tides change just 3 days either side of October 23rd? So from October 20th, every tide across the planet is anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 times higher than normal. And then just 3 days out after the 26, 27, 28, and that's it. But we only had 6 or 7 days of 10 times higher tides across the entire planet. What would that do? Because I'm looking at this and I'm not seeing geoengineering. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing cosmic radiation management. Things are not as they seem. And if you look at the world, it doesn't seem to make sense anymore. And why are the governments all moving in unison and all doing something that is so counterintuitive for a fruitful world? It's more about controlling the resources as we go through this. So whoever's left with the best continuity plan would still be able to rebuild the new world and stay in control of it. What happened in our past with such gargantuan changes in a blink of an eye? That is really what I think the discombobulation and the distraction of the global populace is all about right now. They're preparing over there, continuity plans, full motion, 100% steamrolled ahead. Where you're out here getting distracted with hyperinflation. Question the past and we might be able to see the future. Please leave your comments below if you agree, disagree. I'm looking for information too. That's why I'm putting out the video. I'd like to try to share some information. So please leave what you believe is the reasons, the triggers, the hidden history, why coastal areas can increase 1.5 miles or so. And why there's no buildings left, not even stones, not even remnants, not even cracked stone remnants are left of any of this gigantic facility that would rival any like container port that we have today in terms of size. Where did it all go? That's the question. I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. You know, Ransom Godwin and myself, Mini Ice Age Conversations live radio show 10 p.m. to midnight, Thursday nights, Eastern Standard Time, Studio A. If you want to get a copy of our show notes, things that we talk about during our program, that way you can have conversations just like this. Head over to oilseedcrops.org, click on the tab, MIAC radio show, throw your email in there and we'll get that out to you on the weekly. I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of it. Bye for now.